welcome to SVG-TV News for Friday, January 29, 2021. I am Rochelle Batiste with the details. Geologist with the UWI Seismic Research Center, Professor Richard Robinson, appealed to residents in the danger zones of Lassofre Volcano not to drop their guards. Professor Robinson, who left the state on Wednesday, told residents of Georgetown during a virtual consultation on Tuesday that it is possible an explosive eruption of the volcano can occur with not much time for people to evacuate.
On guard for moving very fast. We are working arduously to put in sufficient monitoring elements that we will have some indication, but there is a chance that it simply would move from what is doing now, which is quietly extruding magma, to something that is much more active and faster and probably explosive within a matter of hours rather than days, as we would like. I believe the National Emergency Organization would like to have, and I know given their plans, would like to have a couple of hours, probably a day or two. There is no guarantee that that would happen. So I think we need to hope that would happen, but we need to prepare for the fact that, you're essentially getting your warning now that something can happen, and that when it happens, there will be very little time. It might be hours, it might be minutes, it might be almost instantaneous. And what you simply have to do when you get that, when you get the message that something is happening, you simply have to move south.
Seismicity at Lassofre has moved from 3 earthquakes a day to as many as 100 per day with low magnitude, while the increase in seismicity has been attributed to the installation of more seismic stations closer to the volcano. Dr. Robertson said that they are aware that the activities are intense below the dome.
What we have now, in a sense, is quite a bit of precursory signal that it can do something. It's telling us that it's having an effusive eruption, and that we're now at that stage where we could tell people to do certain things. So we should make use of, in a sense, all of this activity that's happening to put our house in order. So the individuals need to do that and not wait, until something actually happens to do something. I think it's giving us quite a bit of activity now, which is effusive, yes, but I would take it as a warning that it could get explosive, essentially.
Dr. Robinson said though not much monitoring was done before the 1979 explosive eruption, he feels that at this time SVG is in an advanced state of monitoring and hoping for the least impact and outcome of the volcano if it was to erupt explosively.
So we have put an instrument, essentially a fancy mirror, in a sense, at the top of the mountain. And what we're going to do, we're going to work with the Land Surveyors Department to get one of the surveyors to come out and shoot a beam of light to it. And with the return period, we look at the distance of the light. We can use the timing of the light and the distance it travels to get essentially a measure of the length from the instrument, from the reflector to where we're measuring from, to see how long it is. And if we do that from various points, we would perhaps be able to tell if that point on the crater rim is moving, and we'd expect that prior to failure, we have done some indication that it's under stress by that point moving. So we're going to measure for that. It's not something that we're particularly concerned about now, but it is something that may become more of a problem as the dome gets bigger, and we're already looking at its possible happening, and therefore trying to find ways of monitoring for it.
The new lead scientist monitoring Lassofre Volcano, Dr. Thomas Christopher, who specializes in gases, told SVG-TV News via a telephone interview today that while the gases emitting from the volcano do not pose a threat to livelihood, they can cause further damage to vegetation outside of the crater and could spread further down at the rate the lava dome is effusing.
The damage that we see is actually migrating downslope away from the volcano, and that will be a function of how strong the plume is. And well, as long as the eruption continues, you would expect the plume to get stronger with time. So it's not surprising that it's systematically moving downslope, and basically that area where the vegetation is being burnt gives you an indication of where the wind or the dominant wind direction is, because the wind controls where the gases go. So I expect that to continue over time and probably reach the coast as long as the volcano keeps producing these toxic gases.
There are several farmers higher up the mountain slope who Dr. Christopher said should not take the chance of waiting for things to get worse before they leave, especially those who have respiratory problems.
It would be a function of how comfortable they are breathing in these gases. And I would hope that if they're not comfortable, they would have left by now. Because if you have something like bronchitis or asthma, this would probably be a bigger problem than for someone who doesn't have that sort of disorder to deal with. So I guess it's an individual thing when it comes to gases. If you're not feeling well, if it's making you sick, then you should probably leave the area. It's a sensible thing to do, and I'm pretty sure it's a reaction that most people would have. If you're having difficulties breathing, it's something you respond to fairly quickly. I don't think people ignore breathing difficulties. So if people are not comfortable downwind of the plume, it's up to them to put themselves in a position where they're comfortable.
The new lava dome is effusively erupting from the southwest direction, which is on the leeward side of the mainland. The gas specialist said there are several gases coming out of the crater, which include carbon dioxide. He said it is the hope that he will be able to go down into the crater for measurement at least once a week.
Gases themselves are not a threat to people who live in the communities at present. The carbon dioxide that we mentioned, basically it's a fairly dense gas and it's heavier than air. Sulfur gases, they're quite distinct, so they chase you away really easy. So the danger is people going down into the crater where CO2 might be pooling. And another thing I need to mention is carbon dioxide comes up through the ground as well. And that is one thing that we need to try and constrain when we get that instrument on island, is to measure how much carbon dioxide is actually coming up through the ground. So we're quite certain that there's quite a bit of it coming up from the crater floor as well.
The alert level for the volcano remains at orange, and the National Emergency Management Organization is reminding the public that no evacuation order or notice has been issued. NEMO continues to appeal to the public to desist from visiting the La Soufrière volcano, especially going into the crater, since doing so is extremely dangerous. It said it will continue to provide regular updates on all activities taking place at La Soufrière. In some COVID-19 related news now, we hear that the country on Thursday confirmed 38 new cases of COVID-19. All of the cases, according to the National Emergency Management Organization, NEMO, were detected during contact tracing, testing at flu clinics, and exit screening. There are now 724 local cases of COVID-19, the majority of whom are linked to various clusters. 46 persons have recovered, bringing the total number of recoveries to 220. 643 cases remain active, and 2 persons with COVID-19 have died. 865 cases of COVID-19 have been reported in St. Vincent and the Grenadines since March 2020. NEMO said all positive cases will remain isolated until cleared, and urges all close contacts of positive cases to contact the flu clinic in their district to arrange testing for clearance. NEMO is also reminding all residents and visitors to SVG of the importance of consistently wearing facial coverings to protect themselves from being infected with the virus which causes COVID-19. As COVID-19 rages on across the globe, the economic fallout is rising with little hope for many businesses for the immediate future. Through telephone interviews, SVG-TV News spoke with a number of local business operators whose revenue is heavily dependent on tourism, and the picture they paint is grim. Within the hotel sector, bookings have been heavily reduced and in some instances non-existent. One hoteler on mainland St. Vincent detailed their current struggles.
We were doing reasonably okay from last year, July, through to December, but as a necessary means, the government issued a mandatory 14-day booking, and while people would think that benefits hotels, they don't consider the fact that guests will actually cancel We used to have an occupancy of usually 80 to 90%. On the low season, it would drop to about 65%. Now, we've just had our last 2 guests check out and don't have any future bookings. Normally, we have about 51 staff members, I believe, and now we're operating with about 15.
Restaurants attached to these hotels have not been spared, with significantly reduced patronage.
You know, people are skeptical to come out, and then we have to cut staff, which is really sad. So far, it's been like 4 persons, and we cut last year because we're not getting any business at all. And if it continues like that, maybe the rest of us have to go as well. Like, sometimes you're there and there's no one at all for the entire day. So we would have to depend on the hotel guests that are on quarantine, which may be 7 or so at this moment.
Both sea and ground tour operators said their businesses have grinded to a dismal halt and there are simply no guests to use their services. Additionally, with COVID-19 numbers soaring on island, cruise and party excursions among locals have ceased.
Operators like the day tour operators who take out people on day tours, the boat tours, they would have been the best of a lot because they don't have no tourists who want to go and, you know. I would say 0 bookings right now, but I mean, you know, you have 1 or 2. Now we would have been really, really busy and going, let's say 6 days a week or 5 days a week because we would have had cruise ships in, we would have had guests in the hotels, people would have been able to go, even if it's a party with 50 people for local line, we don't have that now, so it's 0 now basically, you know. We laid off all the part-timers we had working, who used to work on seasonal workers, and then the others are on 1 week off, 1 week on, some of them are 1 week a month. You know, we're just trying to keep them with something, you know.
Well, for the tour side of things, it would probably be 100% because nothing came in this season. We are looking forward to the future and hoping for better things.
The Grenadines, which is largely dependent on tourism, is not faring well either. A representative of the Bequia Tourism Association spoke on the bleak situation.
Most of the properties have cancellations, and most of the hotels are actually closed now. Right about now, tours are basically non-existent. Well, we didn't have a tourist season this year, you know. In Bequia, we didn't have a tourist season. Even here, us at the BTA, we would usually sell souvenirs and so on. And basically, we might have a few yachties that come in, like what, once or twice a month and purchase something. You know what I mean?
The business operators with whom our news team spoke with said while the National Insurance Services, the NIS, has provided a supplementary $300 support for displaced workers, they have seen little to no concessions to ease their struggles. They say they have held meetings with the Minister of Finance and the head of the Tourism Authority, but no concrete support has been determined. In other news, President of the SVG Teachers Union, Oswald Robinson, says they have been following the budget estimates and was disappointed to know that the appointment of senior qualified assistant teachers was not catered for. Robinson said this is an old issue that continues even as they now have a new minister who understands the SVGTU's position. He noted that there are approximately 60 teachers who are yet to be appointed.
Years from 10 all up to 20-something years, right? And this is impacting on the teachers because you have younger teachers who are coming on and are being appointed as graduates. So there's the senior qualified assistant teachers who are yet to be appointed, and having listened to the government's budget, there is nothing in the budget for the appointment of senior qualified assistant teachers. And this has been an issue that the union would have been communicating with the government and with the Ministry of Education. As a matter of fact, our collective agreement, which was signed way back in 2005, the government agreed to appoint a third of those categories of teachers.
During his presentation of the 2021 budget estimates, Minister of Finance Camila Gonzalez announced that there were several appointments for graduate teachers, which Robinson said they are happy to hear about. However, he noted that there is the issue of some graduates who were bypassed with no explanation given.
Been graduated longer than the recent ones, and some of those are put at the bottom of the scale, and those who just graduated are being put at the top of the scale. There's a grade E and a grade F. One of them is a higher salary scale than the other. So the recent persons from the college, most of them from the universities, most of them are being placed at the higher level of the salary scale, $4,000+, you know, and the others are getting 3,000 something.
Robinson noted that meetings were held with the Minister of Education prior to the presentation of the budget estimates, and their positions were clearly stated, including a reminder of the collective bargaining agreement, which was never upheld.
By tooth and nail. So the battle of the teachers' union, the struggle continues. There are persons who emerge from the ranks of the union and they get into those positions. And sometimes you don't really get, yes, they go there with a passion and a love, yes, because they are still members of the union, many of them. But in reality, they promote the government's agenda and not really the union's agenda. You see, and it is true, yes, the new minister would have inherited some of the very things. He was at some of the meetings discussing some of the same issues related to pension. You understand? Which is another battle we have to fight with the government.
44 million EC dollars have been allocated in this year's budget estimates for the Ministry of Agriculture, Forestry, Fisheries, Rural Transformation and Labor. This was pointed out by Minister Subota Caesar in his contribution to the debate on the 2021 budget estimates in Parliament on Wednesday. He noted that the money allocated to his ministry will effect positive sectorial changes and national development and growth. Minister Caesar said that the money is divided between current and capital expenditure, noting that there are 11 programs in the ministry under the current expenditure amounting to 23 million EC dollars.
There are 11 programs under the ministry, and I will call them out. It's Policy, Planning and Administrative Support Services, Research and Development, Forestry Services, Animal Health and Production Services, Fisheries Services, Agriculture Extension and Advisory Services, the Banana Services Unit, Industry, Bureau of Standards, Labor and Rural Transformation Support Services. 3 of these programs, Madam Speaker, received increases. Policy, Planning and Administrative Services, an increase of 26%. Over last year's estimate under the same category.
Minister Caesar said the capital expenditure for the ministry, which amounts to $21 million, will be spent on 26 projects.
$8 million will be financed by local loans, 11 by grants, and 1.5 by external loans. And Madam Speaker, some 26 capital projects have been approved for 2021, compared to 23 capital projects in 2020. There's a decrease in allocation in relation to projects for 2021 compared to 2020 as a result of the closure of the Basic Needs Trust Fund 9 program in the second, which will be closed in the second quarter of 2021. I want to speak about the 4 new projects first. That is 4 of the 26 capital projects.
He also highlighted 4 new capital projects that the ministry will be involved with this year, which include the upgrading of agricultural community markets.
Work done on the Belmont depot to renovate it so that it can be utilized as a buying depot for food on the leeward side of the country. We already have Lanley Park, Lauders, and Lacqua, and we want to ensure that the farmers on the leeward side of the country that they have access to a buying depot. The Fisheries Development Project, Phase 1, $1 million. And this is to facilitate the fishers and the purchase of boats for lobster, conch, and fish. And this is tied to the growing demand for fish and fish products to be exported.
For the Ministry of Transport and Works, $79.3 million have been allocated to the ministry in this year's estimates. In his contribution to the debate, Minister Montgomery Daniel said that the money is divided between recurrent expenditure of $31.4 million EC dollars and capital expenditure of $47.8 million EC dollars. Minister Daniel highlighted several areas that the money from the recurrent expenditure will be spent on.
Policy planning and administration, an amount of $9,485,963. The Roads, Building and General Service Authority, $14 million. Lands and Surveys Department, $1,613,458. The Land Management Unit has $414,848. Physical Planning Unit, $1,742,617. The Electrical Inspectorate, $723,107.
The Transport and Works Minister said that capital expenditure will cover several projects this year, including $300,000 for the Gracefield Mountain Road and $6 million for general road repairs.
That this allocation is additional to the subvention that is given to BRAXA on a yearly basis. $2 million were allocated for the purchase of aggregate for infrastructural development, an amount of $1,024,000 allocated for the rehabilitative works, including construction of a retaining wall and a bus shed at Villa. And some allocated of $282,300. And this has been allocated as counterpart funding.
Minister Daniel said that with demand on the Ministry of Transport and Works, it required more allocation. However, they will try to carry out their programs with the available resources. Opposition MP for South Leeward and Shadow Minister for Culture, Nigel Stevenson, expressed disappointment that no money was allocated in the budget estimates for culture. In his contribution to the debate on the estimate, Stevenson said that the pandemic has caused persons in the entertainment and cultural industry to lose income, and now is a time when the government should come to their aid.
In St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we should have been positioning ourselves to take advantage of the time when we will return to normal. Although we are experiencing a new normal, we will return to normalcy because we have seen that there are several biochemical companies that have developed these vaccines, and from all reports, the vaccines are working against the coronavirus. So at some stage, we will return to some degree of normalcy. And those persons who have been imprisoned or under house arrest, literally by this coronavirus, they will love to have the opportunity, the first opportunity to leave so that their lives can be returned to normal.
Minister Stevenson noted that instead of focusing on a new parliament building, money should have been allocated to construct a center for the performing arts, which he thinks will help the tourism and culture industry when things get back to normal.
For us, not just to concentrate on a new parliament building, but to concentrate on something that is going to give us some benefits in the end. Our artisans, our young musicians, and a lot of the tourists, and we've talked about the fact that our tourism industry have taken a beating. But we must prepare ourselves to take advantage, to have a jump start whenever life returns to normalcy. People can have plain entertainment, different days, different artists, where people can go out there, and not just the local people, but the tourists.
And opposition MP for East Kingston, Fitzgerald Bramble, said that he cannot applaud the Minister of Finance for a job well done on this year's budget estimates. Making his contribution to the debate on the estimates in Parliament on Wednesday, Bramble, who is a trained economist, said when he assessed the current situation, the estimates do not reflect a commitment in addressing the challenges facing the country.
This item, which is referred to as other receipts, which constitutes a sizable percentage of the capital receipts, $258 million, to not consider it in my analysis. And my reason being, it's either you don't know where the money is coming from, or you don't care to explain. Either way, it doesn't provide me with anything substantive to include as part of the analysis. And furthermore, I would add, Madam Speaker, that if you're going to be projecting to spend the people's money, then the people ought to know where the money is coming from, how you're getting the money, and how you plan to spend it.
Bramble further commented on the national debt, which at the end of 2020 stood at $1.8 billion. He said this is a major concern for future generations.
Because I have children and grandchildren, and I'm sure many other members here in this honorable house have children, maybe grandchildren, or aspire to have children or offspring. And I don't think it would be fair for us to leave what I consider this economic millstone around their neck. Now, don't get me wrong. I am not for any moment or by any stretch of the imagination suggesting that we should not incur debt. But how it's done and the magnitude and how it's managed leave a lot to be desired.
The opposition MP said the rapid increase of the national debt poses a serious problem for the country.
Explanations as to why my argument may not necessarily hold. But the fact of the matter is that it is possible that with this rate of increase in our national debt, we have an even more serious problem on our hands. And to add insult to injury, Madam Speaker, our debt to GDP ratio increased from 73% to 85%. 85% or thereabout. What that simply means is that for every dollar that this country produces by way of our GDP, 85% out of that dollar.
Budget Day is Monday, February 1st, 2021, and will be held under strict protocols. A notice from the Office of the Speaker of the House of Assembly said there will be no inspection of the guard prior to the delivery of the throne speech either by the Prime Minister or Her Excellency the Governor General. The customary police parade has also been cancelled. Further, members of the public will not be allowed in the chamber as the public gallery remain closed. Other arrangements made for the first session of the 11th Parliament include seating arrangements for parliamentarians that allows for physical distancing of members in chambers, which will have 6 elected and or nominated parliamentarians. Both government and opposition members must wear a mask and will be allowed to rotate persons for the purpose of making contributions to the budgetary debate. The members will, however, be allowed to take off their mask when making their contribution to the debate.